HOA Karen sent fake cops to my cabin, but I was working with the FBI the whole time. The pounding on my cabin door at 3 a.m. was thunderous. 3 men in police uniforms shouted, "Search warrant! Open up!" Most people would panic. Not me. I smiled. I knew exactly what this was. A performance. One directed by none other than Miranda Vane, the tyrannical HOA president who had turned my retirement into a nightmare with phony fines, threatening letters, and now fake cops. What she didn't know was that this cabin was bait in a federal sting. I'd been working with the FBI for months, and tonight, the trap was finally sprung. 6 months ago, I thought I'd found heaven, a peaceful lakeside cabin to enjoy my early retirement from software engineering. Just me, some freelance coding, and a fishing rod. Enter Miranda Vane. She ran the Eagle Lake Community HOA like a personal dictatorship. 3 days after I moved in, I got a $500 fine for grass growing a 1/4 inch too tall. From there, things escalated quickly. She'll fine me for leaving my bicycle on the porch, claimed the smell of my barbecue, violated neighborhood standards, and once even called the real police when I had friends over for a fishing trip, accusing me of running an illegal commercial operation. Miranda didn't just enforce rules. She stalked, documented, harassed, clipboard, camera, measuring tape. She came armed, like she was collecting evidence for war crimes. When I first vented about it to my old college roommate, FBI agent Sarah Chen, I was just looking for sympathy. Instead, Sarah dropped a bomb. Miranda wasn't just a rogue HOA president. She was part of a white-collar criminal scheme. For years, Miranda had been running a consulting service, essentially a legal harassment operation. Her clients, real estate developers and property managers who wanted to push residents out. She weaponized HOA rules to bully people into leaving. Sarah had been building a case for months. All she needed was a live incident with witnesses, recordings, and federal oversight. That's where I came in. My cabin became the sting site. Tonight was the culmination of months of planning. I'd accidentally let my nosy neighbor, Margaret Clearwater, a known gossip and Miranda's fence chat confidant, overhear me complain about a broken security system and mention I'd be staying alone. It was the perfect bait. Isolated, vulnerable, unguarded. What Miranda didn't know was that my cabin was wired with 12 hidden FBI-grade cameras. My phone streamed the feeds directly to Sarah's command center, and Margaret. Her hearing aids were secretly high-fidelity recording devices provided by the FBI. The cops knocking on my door weren't real, and I could tell. Their uniforms were off, their badge numbers didn't match police department formats, and their squad car decals were laughably fake. Still lying in bed, I texted Sarah, "Fish are biting. Time to reel them in." I got up, slipped into character, and opened the door. I wore the expression of a groggy, confused homeowner. "Officers, I'm sorry, this is all a bit confusing. Can I see some ID? Maybe call your station." That rattled the leader, a burly man whose badge read Officer R. Baxter. He exchanged glances with the other 2 men, then barked, "Refusing to cooperate is obstruction of justice. Step aside." Perfect. The more aggressive they acted, the better. Every word, every move recorded. Margaret was already outside, in her bathrobe, watering her roses at 3:30 a.m., playing her role to perfection. She would be our primary witness. The men stormed in. Baxter barked orders like a bad TV cop. "Johnson, check the kitchen. Davis, the bedrooms." They fanned. Out like treasure hunters, they weren't looking for real violations. They were searching for planted evidence, fake blueprints, construction receipts, and wiring diagrams I had deliberately left out for them to find. Soon, Johnson called out, "Receipts. Lumber, electrical work. None of this matches. County permits." Of course, it didn't. The receipts had wrong vendor codes, impossible dates, and references to non-existent materials, all created by the FBI's forgery experts. Baxter pulled blueprints from a drawer and waved them triumphantly. Unpermitted deck expansion. This is serious. Then came the next gift. You know, Baxter said, we've been watching you. Fishing at 6, groceries Wednesdays, poker on Saturdays. He rattled off details of my private routine. No real cop would say that during a building inspection. He had just admitted to surveillance and stalking, federal crimes all on tape. I let my voice shake. Look, maybe we can work something out. Baxter leaned in, eyes gleaming. $5,000. Morrison, quiet cash payment. No court, no lawyers, no problem. Bribery, extortion, impersonation, conspiracy, all caught on camera. Margaret continued to garden, recording everything. Meanwhile, Johnson and Davis kept finding the fake evidence, blueprints, mismatched wiring diagrams, fake receipts with glaring errors. Each discovery added another charge. Fraud, unlawful entry, impersonating federal officers. Then came the big one. Baxter returned with his second demand, $10,000 this time, community settlement fee, pay, and all this disappears. That was Miranda's signature number. Sarah's investigation revealed it was her go-to fee, split between herself and the enforcers. And now, Baxter had said it aloud. On tape, I don't know, I stammered. How can I be sure this will go away? Baxter's grin was chilling. Trust me, $10,000 and you'll never hear from us or the HOA again. I nodded slowly. Okay, just give me a second. That was the signal. Sarah's team, positioned around the lake, moved in. FBI agents emerged from the tree line. Red and blue lights lit up the water. Baxter barely had time to process what was happening before he was tackled to the ground. Davis tried to bolt. Didn't make it. Far, Johnson raised his hands and dropped to his knees. Margaret, still watering her roses like it was just another Tuesday morning. The charges stacked high. Impersonating law enforcement, bribery, extortion, fraud, breaking and entering, criminal conspiracy, and Miranda. She was arrested 2 hours later at her home, still in a bathrobe, clutching her clipboard. Her consulting empire collapsed. Overnight, with evidence from 3 communities and multiple witnesses, the feds had enough to dismantle her entire operation. As for me, I spent the rest of the morning sipping coffee on my porch, watching the sun rise over Eagle Lake. Exactly, like I'd always dreamed, justice wasn't just served. It was beautifully, poetically delivered. The sound of fists pounding on my cabin door at 3:00 a.m. jolted me from bed. 3 men in police uniforms shouted, "Search warrant! Open up!" Most people would panic, but not me. I smiled. I knew exactly what game was being played. Miranda? Vane, president of the Eagle Lake HOA, had escalated her harassment campaign to a new level. For months, she had buried me in fake fines, threatening letters, and HOA citations for everything from my lawn height to the smell of grilled barbecue. But while she thought she was starring in her own midnight drama, she had no idea I was already working with the FBI. My cabin. Bait in a federal sting operation. It all started 6 months ago when I, Tyler Morrison, bought this cabin for an early retirement. A peaceful lakeside retreat turned bureaucratic nightmare the moment Miranda inserted herself into my life. First, a $500 fine for grass exceeding height regulations by a quarter inch. Then, citations for my bicycle on the porch, and even one for having guests over. But the final straw, accusations of running a commercial fishing operation with friends. Miranda pursued her HOA reign with obsessive zeal, but her aggression caught the attention of someone who could actually do something. FBI agent Sarah Chunmai, old college roommate. When I called her to vent, I expected sympathy. Instead, I got a revelation. Miranda wasn't just an overbearing HOA tyrant. She was operating a full-blown criminal enterprise. Davis continued their fake search. I mentally tallied the growing list of federal crimes being committed in my living room: breaking and entering, criminal impersonation, attempted extortion, solicitation of bribes, fraud, conspiracy, and stalking. These three men had managed to commit enough felonies in 30 minutes to earn themselves decades in federal prison. And they thought they were the ones in control of the situation. The fake cops were so focused on their evidence gathering and extortion attempts that they completely failed to notice the most important detail of their entire operation: the absolute silence surrounding my cabin. Real law enforcement, operations building, code inspections, raids, even traffic stops involved communication, coordination, and backup. But these clowns were operating in a vacuum, oblivious to the fact that they were surrounded by a carefully positioned FBI tactical team waiting for the perfect moment to strike. At exactly 4:30 a.m., the peaceful silence around Eagle Lake shattered. FBI sirens pierced the night, powerful spotlights lit up the cabin like a movie set. And the difference between this professional response and the amateur hour inside my home was obvious. Baxter's confident demeanor disintegrated. "What the hell is going on?" he yelled, dropping the fake evidence he had been documenting. Johnson and Davis froze, their bravado vanishing into sheer panic. From my window, I watched tactical vehicles block every escape route with surgical precision. Then came Sarah Chen's voice over a professional-grade megaphone. "FBI, this area is surrounded. You are ordered to exit the building immediately. With your hands visible and surrender peacefully," Baxter shouted back, trying to salvage the operation. "This is Officer Baxter. We're conducting a legitimate search operation here." His voice cracked. No one believed him anymore. The FBI's response was clear. "You are not law enforcement officers. Exit the building now or face additional charges." As the fake cops scrambled in panic, I dropped the frightened homeowner act. "Gentlemen, welcome to an actual police operation," I said calmly. "These officers have real warrants, real badges, and federal jurisdiction. You've just committed more than 15 federal crimes while being recorded." The look on their faces was unforgettable. Baxter whispered, "You set us up. Every step you took in this cabin was planned and documented." I confirmed. "Breaking and entering, impersonation, extortion, bribery, fraud, conspiracy, stalking, all caught on video." Sarah appeared in the doorway in full tactical gear. "Rick Baxter, also known as Richard Baxter. You're under arrest for impersonating a federal officer, conspiracy to commit extortion, and multiple additional charges," she said, cuffing him. Johnson and Davis offered no resistance. As the men were led away, Sarah explained to them what they'd really walked into. "This cabin has been a federally monitored environment for the past month. Every conversation you had here, every crime you committed has been recorded. This operation will take down an entire criminal harassment network." Then came the cherry on top. Margaret Clearwater shuffled over from her garden with a smile. "Good morning, officers. I hope you got everything you needed on those recordings. I've been documenting their harassment for months." Baxter's betrayed expression when he saw even the sweet old lady next door was in on it was priceless. Sarah turned to me. "Tyler, we just identified at least 8 other victims. This bust is the first step toward dismantling a multi-state harassment and extortion network." But the true mastermind was still untouched, Miranda Vane, with 2 hours until she awoke. Sarah and I reviewed the evidence and mapped the next phase. "What you experienced here is just the tip of the iceberg," Sarah said, showing files on HOA abuse cases across 3 states. Miranda's company, Compliance Solutions LLC, had been running harassment for hire services. The scheme: pressure homeowners to leave with legal threats, harassment, or staged police raids, then resell the property below market. Our surveillance network flagged Miranda waking up. Margaret texted me. She's awake and making phone calls. Sounds urgent. On audio, we heard Miranda's anxiety spike. "Rick, answer your damn phone. You were supposed to call me hours ago. What happened at the Morrison cabin?" She had no idea that her entire criminal empire had begun to crumble. Phase 2 was ready to begin. Just before sunrise, Sarah coordinated the final takedown. Federal warrants were issued for Miranda's properties, offices, and digital records. Simultaneously, agents in 3 states began raiding Compliance Solutions LLC branches and seizing their servers, financial records, and client lists. Meanwhile, Miranda paced her kitchen in panic, calling her contacts one after another, each one either under arrest or refusing to answer. Her house, a fortress of smug authority the day before, now echoed with anxiety. She barely had time to pour her first cup of coffee when her smart doorbell chimed. The screen showed a line of black SUVs and agents in windbreakers moving in. Miranda Vane, a voice called through the intercom. "This is the FBI. We have a warrant for your arrest. Come out with your hands visible." She hesitated. Then, in a final, desperate act of arrogance, she clutched her clipboard as if her paperwork might shield her from federal charges and opened the door. "This is a mistake. I'm a community leader. I've done nothing wrong," she yelled. Agents calmly moved in. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, extortion, impersonation of public officials, and interstate racketeering." As she was led away in cuffs, neighbors peeked out from curtains, some filming, others applauding. The tyrant was finished. Back at my cabin, I watched the news unfold. Eagle Lake, once the quiet setting for Miranda's crusade of control, had become ground zero for the exposure of a national scandal. Over the next few days, the headlines exploded. HOA president arrested in FBI sting. Harassment for-hire network uncovered Compliance Solutions LLC. Linked to multi-state extortion scheme victims speak out against HOA tyranny. It was like living under a dictator. Sarah and I gave an exclusive interview outlining the operation from setup to takedown. Victims came forward, lawsuits were filed, and reforms were proposed. The story sparked a national debate about HOA overreach and legal accountability. I finally had my piece. No fines, no harassment, just the lake, my porch, and the knowledge that I had helped shut down one of the most twisted HOA corruption schemes in modern history. Justice wasn't just served, it was delivered with precision, in full view of the nation, and iced with poetic vengeance. The fall of Miranda Bain, a happy story after her failed fake police operation. Miranda Bain frantically tried to contact the team she had deployed. But the 3 impostors, Rick Baxter, Johnson, and Davis, had vanished without a trace. What Miranda didn't know was that they were already in federal custody, being debriefed about their roles in her growing criminal empire. Meanwhile, Sarah received an urgent call from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. "We've tracked Miranda's company Compliance Solutions LLC across 12 different communities," the agent reported. "Over $300,000 in payments over 18 months, all tied to property management companies targeting difficult residents." It wasn't just one scheme. Miranda had franchised a system of harassment, fake legal notices, fraudulent code violations, orchestrated neighbor complaints, and even manufactured law enforcement intimidation. The pattern was clear and deeply disturbing. The more vulnerable the resident, the more aggressive her tactics. Thanks to a surveillance recording from Margaret, Miranda's own words were sealing her fate. "I think we need to activate the backup plan," Miranda said in a panicked phone call. "Contact Tony. Proceed with the permanent solution. If Tyler doesn't disappear in the next 48 hours, we're finished." Sarah didn't wait. She dispatched agents to find Tony, while Miranda, unaware she was being monitored, continued to incriminate herself in increasingly damning recordings. That same day, David Goldstein arrived with the final piece of the puzzle. Miranda's entire HOA authority was a fraud, he said. Her election was illegitimate, her bylaw changes never ratified. She had no legal authority over anyone. At dawn the next morning, the FBI rolled up to Miranda's pristine colonial home in the heart of Eagle Lake. The woman who had tormented her neighbors with fake authority was now facing real law. Sarah announced her arrest with calm authority. "Miranda Bain, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, extortion, and operating a criminal enterprise. Inside Miranda's home office, agents discovered a treasure trove of evidence, spreadsheets detailing harassment budgets, psychological profiles of targets, before and after photos of neighborhoods she had cleansed, and profit charts showing just how lucrative her coercive business had been. There were files on over 50 families, categorized by threat level and vulnerability. Red stickers marked Stage 3 victims people she considered close to eviction or financial collapse. Then came the emotional blow. Margaret Clearwater Sweet, elderly Margaret, walked up with months of recorded conversations. Miranda's face crumbled as she realized her next-door neighbor had been gathering evidence the entire time. The most shocking of all, a phone call where Miranda ordered Tony to make Tyler's death look like a fishing accident. "Use that," Miranda shrieked. "That woman's been stalking me." Margaret replied coolly, "Would you like me to play the one where you plan to poison the Henderson's dog?" As Miranda was placed in the back of a federal vehicle, she screamed, "You don't know who you're messing with." But by then, everyone knew exactly who she was, with mounting evidence and growing national interest. Miranda was hit with a barrage of charges: conspiracy to commit murder, financial fraud, impersonating an officer, racketeering, identity theft, and more. Her fake HOA presidency had been a front for one of the largest harassment for-profit networks the FBI had ever uncovered. The agents also discovered her trophy room, a locked basement space with photos, files, and souvenirs from every family she had driven out like a serial predator. She had documented her success with cold efficiency. A week later, Tyler returned to Eagle Lake. The fear and unease that had hung over the community like fog had finally lifted. Rick and his crew had already pleaded guilty, receiving sentences of 3 to 5 years. Miranda, after a month-long federal trial, was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison and ordered to pay over $400,000 in restitution. At the next community meeting, Eagle Lake residents voted unanimously to dissolve the HOA entirely and start fresh. In its place, they formed a voluntary neighborhood watch led by none other than Margaret Clearwater. Her first message to the community was short but powerful. "We've learned the difference between helping neighbors and harassing them. No one should be afraid to live in their own home." Tyler donated his $15,000 in restitution to build a community center by the lake. It would include a library, a meeting hall, and a memorial wall dedicated to victims of HOA abuse. On the wall, etched into polished wood, were the names of every family Miranda had tried to evict. As for Miranda, she was last seen filing complaints in prison, this time about the rough texture of her bedsheets and the color of her orange jumpsuit. Detective Sarah Chen had become a local legend. In the months that followed, she worked with lawmakers in 3 states to introduce new protections for homeowners. "What we did here," she told Tyler over coffee, "helped identify 12 other people running similar scams." This wasn't just about Eagle Lake. This was the start of a movement. With the HOA gone, Eagle Lake flourished. Neighbors, once afraid to hang wind chimes or plant sunflowers, were now painting homes vibrant colors and inviting each other over for barbecues. The Williams family painted their house bright yellow. The Hendersons, whose dog was now safe, held a cookout that ran well into the evening. Tyler sat on his porch one night, watching kids play by the lake, and thought about how peace had finally returned. Miranda Bain had become what she once claimed to despise: a petty tyrant, hiding behind rules to hurt others. "The cycle ends," Tyler said to Sarah, "when someone chooses healing over revenge." The sun set over Eagle Lake. No more fake cops, no more threats, just laughter, community, and hope. If this story gave you hope, we know how helpless it feels when bullies hide behind fake authority. Tyler's story shows that with preparation, courage, and the right allies, justice is possible even against the most powerful abusers. If you believe ordinary people can overcome extraordinary odds, like and subscribe to Happer Stories. We turn property lies into better lives, one story at a time. And hey, subscribe before they fine us for digital landscaping violations.